Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar on an introduction to the Storage Made Easy Enterprise File Share and Sync Fabric. My name is Ana de Jorge and I'm in charge of the Marketing and Communications Department at SME, and today I will be moderating this webinar. I would like to introduce today's presenters. So this webinar will be hosted by Jim Liddell, CEO at Storage Made Easy, and Eric Jolson, our Director of Engineering. In today's session, they will be showing us in a live demonstration how an enterprise file share and sync solution can help your business. So just a reminder, there will be a recorded version of this webinar available, and please feel free to ask your questions in the chat box. We will try to answer all of them at the end of the session. We will also provide our contact details for us to continue any discussions after the webinar has ended. So I hope you enjoy, and thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Hello, everyone. So the format today will be I will go briefly through some slides, then I'll hand across to Eric. Eric will then go into a demo, and from that point, he'll hand back to me and we'll do some more slides. So a little bit about Storage Made Easy and who we are and what we do. So we're a private company. We were founded in 2009. We've been shipping product since 2012. We've got hundreds of private customers online, and they're composed of enterprise, ISPs, universities. Our largest internal deployment is for a telecommunications firm who have 100,000 users using the solution. Our largest external deployment is an OEM, which uses us with around 270,000 users. The product itself is built around sort of bring your own storage. We federate different storage points, and then we wrap them together, make them available to access, and add a single control point. And we have different propositions for different markets. So for ISPs, you can launch your own branded enterprise file share and sync, pretty much with any storage combination. For education, who have lots of different on-premise and on-cloud data, you can federate, control, and make them available. And for enterprise, we essentially offer a blanket that enterprise can use to control all of their data, whether on-premise or on public cloud. And we're also recently G-Cloud certified, and we work on UK cloud infrastructure. For object storage, we provide single sign-on access and user entry points into the deployed object storage. In terms of what we provide, we're providing an enterprise file share and sync fabric that bridges both on cloud and on premise and comes with over 50 connectors. At the front end, we have federated single sign-on, and out of the box we work with Active Directory and LDAP. We also integrate with Apache Solr, which means that we can index and enable search across any of the content repositories. End-to-end across those federated assets, we're providing protection. So all file events are audited. You can use user-controlled encryption over and above what you may get from the end storage providers. We do streamed encryption in which you control the keys. You can set secure file sharing policies that bridge all the providers rather than holistically working on one provider. And we provide a protocol conversion layer that allows you to access any of the storage points over common protocols such as WebDav, FTP, S3, SFTP. The solution that we provide, you'll often see referred to as a private corporate Dropbox, but with IT control. One of the things I would like to highlight is how we work with object storage. So we work with pretty much all of the object storage providers. Object storage itself is pretty interesting, and we recognize that early on. The reason it's interesting is that obviously it provides a good return on investment against normal traditional file and block storage, which is one of the reasons it's been embraced in the enterprise. One of the, I guess, sticking points with object storage can be how do you enable end user access? And SME is a good facilitation to enable that. We provide direct end user access and allow users to interact with it the same way that they might interact with existing NAS, SAN, CIFS type file shares. We were recently UK G Cloud certified, which means that in combination with the UK Cloud Service, we're able to offer our service to accredited government UK organisations. If you're on this webinar from the US, then we can also work with Amazon GovCloud. In terms of our feature set, as I already said, we can work with pretty much any combination of private or public storage. We have over 50 plus storage connectors, which grow almost every week as we continue to engage with enterprise. The latest connector that we just released was our Ceph Rados connector, which is a little different to our traditional Ceph connector in that it interacts directly with the Rados gateway. From a product viewpoint, we provide really a single access federated viewpoint on data, and you'll see a little bit more of that when Eric does his demo. Obviously, in today's world, governance and compliance is of paramount importance. And one of the things that SME has done from the very beginning is concentrated on how we build in those across the various assets that we encompass. So we have audit, which again Eric will show you through his demo. We have the controlled encryption we talked about earlier. We promote a secure file sharing policy, which really is joined up across all the assets. We have cloud governance in the sense that we enable policy setting, we provide geo controls, we hook into best of breed BYOD, even though the product itself has got some MDM capabilities. We can facilitate within the product legal hold, which is if files are deleted, they are retained for a certain policy period. And the product itself works in a way that it can give you file versioning, locking, and a trash capability, even when the underlying providers themselves don't support it. One other thing I should point out is that we work with existing data through the product. We don't seek to move or rename it. In that sense, we're a little different to maybe some of the competitive type offerings you may have seen. So if you put a file through Storage Made Easy, you'll recognize it. It will appear in a directory structure. It will appear to you as the same file. If you put a file through, maybe another competitive product, you'll often see that that file's turned into a hieroglyphic. From that sense, I would urge you, even if you don't choose a product like Storage Made Easy, to be careful, because not only can that be in breach of compliance sometimes, it can also promote lock-in so that you can't really then access those files outside of the product you've chosen. As you would expect from a product like ours, it's multi-channel, anywhere, any place access. So you've got the Web File Manager. We support all mobile and tablets natively, and we work with not only native desktop apps through Sync, but also through our unique cloud drive layer, which again we'll take a look at later. Corporate identity and brand identity in general is important, and as companies embrace these type of products, they often want to make them aligned with their corporate brand. To that extent, Storage Made Easy is very easy to brand, self-brandable by the end user, and we'll take a look again at that through the demo. As I mentioned earlier, we have out-of-the-box support for LDAP and Active Directory. That's our black box support for single sign-on. We do have some white box support in that we can facilitate interoperability with other single sign-on layers, and in the past have worked with things like Kerberos SAML and also Ping Identity Server. The actual product itself is multi-tenant. As an example, an ISP may manage many companies from a single product. Each company may have an admin that manages many users, and each user may have a role that manages other users or departments. The product itself can be made very highly available. It works in an N-tier architecture, so you can have a load balancer on the front end, you can have multiple stateless appliances, and then you can have a back-end state layer, which is essentially MySQL. The only state in the whole stack is MySQL, and that can be made highly available and can also be made replicable in a multi-master type geo-topology if required. The product promotes collaboration. There's been a lot of work done inside of the product to facilitate different use cases. So we have the concept of a project workspace or a virtual workspace or e-room in which files can be shared. There is file commenting on each file and notifications. We integrate with a best-of-breed web office editor in Zoho so that you can have full Zoho desktop editing. And we also integrate directly with Google so that you can, for example, open documents to be edited in Google directly from the desktop. We also have our own PDF annotation support, as well as having what we call drop folder, again, which you will see a little later in the demo, which promotes easy folder and file sharing for end users who are not part or are not logged into the solution. I mentioned earlier that bring your own device support. We do work with best of breed, so we already work with things like Oracle Mobile Security and BlackBerry Sector. We have some BYOD capabilities built in, and recently we did some integration with Mobile Iron. One of the nice things about the product is its protocol gateway. It's not unusual, you know, for different apps or for different hardware to require access over common protocols such as FTP or WebDav or SFTP. We can facilitate that for any backend storage, whether they support those protocols at all. And indeed, we have customers who, for example, expose their product catalogs that are hosted on S3 over FTP that are being honored with Active Directory permissions. I mentioned earlier also that we integrate with Apache Solr. Apache Solr is a best-of-breed open source indexing technology. We use it to be able to index content both locally and remotely, which can be stored behind the corporate firewall. So in essence, you get effectively your own type of Google search for your own documents. So what else do we do? In addition to our full suite of enterprise file share and sync product, we also have dedicated products that just do one thing, which connect directly to back-end storage. There's a list of those on the screen. If there's any interest in those from anyone, then by all means get in touch with us. So just a quick summary before we launch into the demo. Storage Made Easy provides a private enterprise file share and sync fabric. We work with any private cloud storage combination. We're multi-tenant. We do not tamper with the data. We're fully brandable for corporate identity. We integrate with LDAP and Active Directory from a black box single sign-on perspective, but can have white box integrations. We focus on enabling strong cloud governance and security features across all corporate data assets. We have strong collaboration features built into the product and support for things like BYOD and mobile device management. And we integrate with best-of-breed search technologies such as Apache Solr for deep search. If you need to get in touch with us, you can get hold of us in the UK, in the US, and also in Europe. At this point, I'm going to hand it across to Eric, and Eric will facilitate the beginning of the demo, and at some point he'll hand back to me, and I'll complete.
Hi, I'm Eric. Before I start, I have promised to do a quick poll. If you don't mind, pick an answer, hit submit.
We would like to know which storage provider are you using? Microsoft Cloud Storage, Google Cloud Storage, Amazon S3, OpenStack, or Windows File Server? Thank you.
Yeah, so not totally unexpected that we still have a lot of Windows File Server users out there. So let's see. I have two windows open. It's so that I'm able to be both a user of the system over here in my private tab and also an admin of the system over here. So we have set up a company called Demo Incorporated. There we go. So I am in on my homepage as an admin. I have a bunch of quick links right here. So where do we start? Jim mentioned single sign-on, delegated authentication. So here in this case, as we can support many authentication systems at once, we can also, of course, have a single one. This is how I am configured today. I have a secure encrypted key to an AD proxy, so I can do AD across a WAN. I'm here, simple AD, looking into the base of my AD. Additional things we could do with a private provider, we can automatically mount your home folder. So if your AD users have a home folder on the file server, when they log on, we'll mount the folder for them. These users are brought over into our users. So we can see Eric and Jim are both AD users. I can see that over in this column here. They could live alongside other storage or authentication providers and or local user accounts. Since the backend authorization is different on most storage providers, we also manage the roles. So in this case, I've imported roles from AD. I have local roles. And you will see how we apply those later. So where do we go from here? Options. We are white box out of the gate. We can white label clients, iOS, Android. We let you white label your Windows drives yourself, as well as this web page. So if I go and pick up new icons for my login page, I can pick up a new icon for the file manager. I'm not going to touch the email templates for notification or anything like that right now. So if I take me over into my session not logged on, and I refresh this page, we can see my Demo Inc. Logo appears on my login screen. Before we actually log on there, I'm going to go back to the dashboard. I just want to show you how this is set up. In our organization, we currently have three providers. We have a default SME provider. I have a corporate share that's hosted on Amazon S3, and we also have soft layer files on a soft layer provider. So that said, what does this look like when I'm an end user? Eric at Demo Inc. This can also, of course, be configured to match your full email address in Active Directory style. It takes me on. Of course, less permissions. I'm not a authorized user here. I will jump to the file manager. Here, I can only see what I have been given privileges to see. So as my user, I can only see the corporate share. I log on. I can see a general folder and an SME engineering group. I move around just like any system. I have a documents folder. No engineering documents in there today. See if I have some images here, or if we have to upload them. I have a bunch of pictures. You can see we automatically generate previews for you. Pick a file, move over to a bigger preview. You can get file information. When was it uploaded? At what time? Where's the backend provider? Has it been modified? Is there more than one version? Is it available on a shared link, etc., etc., etc. So pretty easy. I will also automatic interactions here, right? So I open up a operating system drive. I pick my design folder. I want to move it into my engineering folder on SME. Drag and drop. The design folder shows up. I go in there and I see I'm still uploading my files. There you go. All uploaded, all available. So now when I want to interact and collaborate on my files, one feature we have is called a Dropbox. I will pick my design folder. I will click the share icon up here. Pick URL and email. I'm going to share one folder. Use an SME URL. I'll make this a drop folder so external people can share files back with me. I'll put a password on there so not anyone with a link can see that folder. And I want to distribute that to my end user with Twilio in this case. So in order to give a second factor authentication for your end user, we can autoband send the password to that user, and then you can share the link through an email. So put in a phone number, we generate a link. See that the URL, the icon for this folder has changed. We can now see there's a URL attached to the folder. Over in the info screen here, I can also see that there's a shared link. So I will, on my phone, that was my SMS. I will take and copy this link that I would normally get through an email. See if we have another browser we can share where we're not authenticated. I put my obfuscated URL in. Now I'm not greeted by the normal login screen. You see the branding logo is there. I will use my one-time password. Takes me into a very simplified view where right in the root, all I can see is the one folder shared with me. I can see those same documents. Now if I go in and pick one of my favorite cat pictures, drag it back, I can write right into this folder and share information back for corporation. So that's a very, very quick display of what we can do, what the interface looks like. Of course, there's much more here. I don't think we have time to get there today. To give an idea of shortcuts we have, encrypted files can be sorted and quickly found. If you have locks from Windows clients, iPhones, iPads, you can go in here and you get a quick search for locked files. If you created groups for sharing, you can go and look at your groups and the group members. Depending on permissions, you could have internal and external users part of groups, so on. So to briefly touch on governance and auditing, I'm back as my organizational admin. I will go back to my options screen. So under file sharing policy, for instance, so you can limit your users. Can they make public files that are accessible as a resource directly linked from a web page, for instance? Can they even create the links? Here we can see, can they create a folder or only a single file? Are they allowed to share them with external people or only with internal organizational people, right? So there's very granular permissions. We can see the drop folder I used here. Can turn that off so you can share a folder for read-only, not let people write back, etc., etc. Do you require passwords? Do you want to expire your sharing? So on. One thing we provide for security, since in many cases we are talking about public clouds, our external key management system. So here we could select an external key management system, store our encryption keys, go to the encryption page, and here, and let's put something in for this. We can now see I can select, do I want to encrypt everything that the organization has as an organizational shared folder? Do I want to include everyone's users' private files? Or do I want to be more granular and only pick specific folders within a single S3 instance, for instance? You can turn on versioning, trash bins for legal hold, etc., etc. So together with all this, we also have auditing capabilities. Let's not save my options. Here we can see a record of everything that's gone on in this system from this organizational standpoint. Your auditor comes to you. They want to see, what has Eric done? Maybe there's a data breach, right? You can quickly here go and say, I'm interested in reads. I'm going to pick all the downloads that Eric has done at any time. I will update my filter. And we can see in this case, what IP did I come from? What file did I touch? By me, of course. What time was it? Can quickly export as a Excel file, as a zip file if it's a larger data set, give to your auditors, and you're done. We, of course, also support exporting this on normal real-time basis to external systems like Splunk, Logstash, etc. So maybe it's a good place to stop right here for me. I hope I've given you a good taste of what we can do in a very brief time. If you're interested in more and deeper information, if I manage to create some questions in your head, don't hesitate, and we can set up a private demo and with more specific questions. So let's stop my session with yet another poll. Make sure I did not bore you to death. So I will launch another poll.
Okay, thank you. So we would like to know what feature is most important to you in an enterprise file share and sync solution. That will be grateful to know. What do you think about? If it's more the encryption address, universal file locking, audit file events, multiply storage backends, or single sign-on? If you please choose your answer, that would be great. Thank you very much.
So the results are on the screen. Pretty fairly spread between the first four. That's great to hear. I will hand over back to Jim.
Thanks, Eric. So I'm going to take a look at a couple of things over and above what Eric has shown. The first is I'm just going to look at a couple of the desktop clients and also look at a couple of the branding apps. So first, I'd just like to pop up, for example, a branding app and just show you what it looks like. So I'm on a remote desktop instance. I'm on Windows. This is the apps packager. What is an apps packager? This is how you create your own corporate branded SME version of our Windows tools. And the interesting thing about it is you can create it as you see fit. So you can change your organization name, you can change the icon, you can change even the name of the product, you can customize it so that it can be towards your own endpoint, and you can decide how you want the users to log on, whether you want them to use their Windows username if you use an Active Directory, whether you want to give them a help URL that's internal to the enterprise, etc. You can decide what components are going to be composed of this. You might have some departments that are power users, you might have some departments that actually are not, and you only want to give them some very simple tools. You also decide on what the local policies are. Do you want to prevent them doing file attachments in Microsoft Outlook? Do you want to block Dropbox so that anybody who installs the tools can no longer access Dropbox? Do you want to default set up the sync tools? Maybe you don't want to sync, maybe you want to clone. So you can do all of that from these tools. And the nice things about them is it's totally personal to you. So you can make this customized to whatever you want it to be. And when you're finished, you get a setup exe file, and you can send that to the end user. We have exactly the same for the Android tools. So this is just an example of the same type of ability to run what we just saw for the Windows tools for the Android tools. If I do a new config, so what I can do from here is I can again customize my own personalized view of the Android app. I can change pretty much everything about it, from the splash screen to the about page details, to the app's name, and again I have some capability with regards to features. So this basically shows you how the branding elements ripple down the products. You don't need to be an expert on the Android side to be able to create your own customized version of the Android app. You don't need to be an expert on the Windows side to create your own customized version of the Windows app. And we also have the same, for example, with the Mac. Where we have apps that require custom App Store keys, then we can quickly take your branding elements and apply those and send them back. Now what I'd like to do is just have a quick look at the Windows client. So the Windows client basically is a suite of tools. As I've just said, you can decide whether to deploy that suite of tools in its entirety, give your users access to everything, or you can limit them to perhaps one or two of those, maybe the Cloud Drive and the Cloud Sync. In this case, I've applied everything. So one of the things that you get is you get access to a Cloud Drive. It looks just like any drive would on your desktop. And in this case, I've got a corporate share that Eric created for me as the Jim user, and I see I've got access to a few directories. As it happens, these are stored on the back end on Amazon S3. But from a user perspective, they just look like what the user would get from their own corporate file share. And the great thing about it is that these are just the stubs. There is no files actually used until you download them. At that point, you will get the files downloaded and opened. Until then, they remain stubs. So for companies that have got a lot of data on back-end object storage, then obviously this is a very good solution, because it means they can have petabytes and petabytes of data, they can browse around that data, and then they can just download things on demand. Also, we have Outlook. So Outlook has integrations to allow you to share files from the clouds or upload files to clouds. So the share from clouds option would mean I want to share a file link. I can load that quickly from here. And remember, you can block attachments from here also. I don't know whether I've got anything in these folders. Let's do a newsletter. Let's do a share. Now, here we have our secure sharing policy. Eric showed you this earlier, but he didn't set anything. So right now, I can choose what to share here, if indeed I want to change any of these policies. What would have happened if Eric had said something is this policy would be preset. So it may be that it was set to expire after 1 day, to expire after 1 download, and it would require me to enter a password, for example. Once I'm done, I simply get a link to the newsletter, and then that newsletter is available with that described policy to the end user, and it will also be audited. So when the end user clicks it, just like Eric showed you in the download folder earlier, what you would see is that this file link had been downloaded from this remote IP address. The integrations also extend into something like Microsoft Word. So I get, or Microsoft Office in general, because we have PowerPoint and Excel, and it also works with LibreOffice. So once you've installed it, you get a new toolbar, which is Cloud Actions. And then I can basically do an open, and I go back to my cloud. And again, I can simply navigate through, and I can find a document, and I can say open it from the cloud. In this case, obviously it's stored on backend Amazon S3, but actually I don't really care what it's stored on. So what it will do is it will go away, it will find the document, it will load it, and then I can start to make any changes I want to make to it, and also I can make any comments I want to make to it directly from in Microsoft Word. So not only do you get the ability to totally edit the document right from the cloud, you also get the ability to add new comments directly from Word. So it's integrated directly into your apps, the same way that it's integrated directly into Outlook. So you don't have to change your workflow to work from the cloud. You basically, it fits directly into your workflow. The other things that you get are our Cloud Explorer. The Cloud Explorer basically is similar to the management interface that Eric showed you on the web, but from Windows. But one of the things it has is a real Explorer mechanism in which you can drag and drop files, directly from the computer directly onto, in this case, what would be Amazon S3, but could be any cloud. So it's a nice mechanism. It's a simple mechanism. Sometimes for users, they prefer this mechanism. But once you start interacting with the files, you get very much the same options that you got previously. So if I right-click, I can open and unlock the file. I can download it. I can edit it or view it. I can do it in other clouds. I can do my own comments. So I have full control over the file from this point. And I can, I can use this to work directly with my files if I haven't installed something like the Word plugin. And indeed, even this is just on the drive. So even this mechanism will go away. It will download the file from the cloud directly from the drive. It will tell me that it's been locked. You'll see that in the bottom right-hand corner because it's locked for me to be able to work with it. And then, as you can see, it's downloaded directly from the cloud, directly through the drive that was in Windows Explorer. It's told me it's been locked. At the point that I close this, when I've finished editing, it will basically release the lock. So it's as you can see, bottom right-hand corner, it's now been unlocked. All on top of Amazon S3, which actually doesn't support locking. So it's a very nice way of being able to work with your backend cloud storage as if it was really a file-based system. The other thing that we've got is the sync tools. So if we launch the Cloud Sync, you get very much, if you've ever used a product like Dropbox, you'll sort of recognize this. You can basically start a sync pair wizard. You can ask what your local folder is. You can tell it what your cloud folder is, and then you can basically keep them in sync for offline use. Now, I'm just showing you the Windows tools. So in the elements of time, I won't go any further than that. But what you've seen here is also available for Mac, and it's also available for Linux. So it's a pretty nice solution to enable holistic end user access to many corporate data assets, either one or many. You can imagine if you've got a back-end object storage solution like OpenStack or indeed Amazon S3, which we're using with, you can access any of those files as if it was a file-based system. And to your users, it just looks like a file-based system. So your users can leave the office on the Friday night and all of accessing, for example, an M drive in which everything is stored on Windows CIFS shares, and then they can come back in the office on the Monday morning after you've done the migration, and they can access exactly the same M drive, but now it's all sat on top of OpenStack or Amazon S3. And they likely would not know any difference. So the other thing I'm going to try and do a little bit more sophisticated now before we end the session, and that is to take a look at backup. If I go back to the Cloud File Manager, so right now, as Eric showed you, we've got Amazon S3, we've got SoftLayer London, which actually in the SoftLayer portal is here, Demo Inc. Archive Container. I set that up about half an hour before we started this session. Now, I have a requirement in my organization to protect the organization from ransomware attacks, and also to make sure that we have an archive copy available if anything malicious should happen to my primary copy, be that user accidental deletion, or be that some ransomware virus that has managed to get onto my Windows PC and locked all my drives. One of the nice things you can do here is you can choose to add a new provider, but this time we're going to make it a backup provider. And this time we're going to make it a backup provider for those My SoftLayer files. Although indeed we could have made it a backup provider for the corporate share Amazon files that Eric did. I'm going to make it another SoftLayer. So SoftLayer has different regions like Amazon does, and I've deployed into the London region. So this time I'm going to do my backup in a different region, all being well. So first thing it says is, what do you want to call it? So I'm going to say it's my SoftLayer backup. And then it wants to know some details about the SoftLayer. So if I go back to here, you can see I'm in London. I'm going to go back. And I'm going to go to Amsterdam. And then I'm going to take my credentials and apply them to SME. And I'm going to do it live. And then afterwards, I guess I'll need to delete this container, given that these are on the screen. But first of all, I will take the public endpoint, and I'll plug it directly into here. And then I will take my username and plug it directly here. And then we'll take this long, effectively secret key, and we'll plug it here. And then we'll say continue. And as long as my copying didn't include a space, it will say, okay, you want to back your files up. Where do you want to back them up to? So I'm going to call it, to create a new container called Demo Inc. Backup. And then what it will do is it will go away to SoftLayer. It will create the backup provider, and then it will start to create a cloud task to move the files from, to copy the files from the primary provider to the backup archive provider. And therein, whenever I add any files to my primary provider, it will copy them to the backup archive provider. And I can make some decisions around how I want those files to be handled on the backup. So I can tell it, for example, to say, hey, if we remove a file on the primary, remove a file on the backup. I probably don't necessarily want to do that if I'm interested in archives. I can also say, hey, rename a file folder on the backup if it's renamed on the primary. Again, if I'm interested in archive, I might not be that interested in doing it. And as SoftLayer is an OpenStack provider, I can make some decisions around DLO and Swift temp URL and OpenStack versioning and things of that nature. And I can go to my Cloud Sync task page, and I can see, some stats about that backup. And eventually, when the schedule is complete, in the Amsterdam one, it'll start to create that backup. In essence, you know, what happens is it will create this, then it will be queued, and eventually it will be moved from the queue and start to be processed. That's eventually what will happen. We're on our public SaaS, so that might take a little time, but eventually we'll see that all of the files are copied into this, you know, demoing backup. And this, of course, works on our on-premise appliance as well, and it's a good way of being able to keep a copy of all the files that you have on the primary cloud. So I think what we've tried to do today is to give you a flavor of, you know, the product that we have. It's pretty wide, it's pretty deep. It's tried to be built to provide the types of things that an organization would need to be able to work with their files, to really put a ring fence around them and say, hey, I want to protect all of my files, I want visibility into that, I want to be able to work with them as if I was working with any local files, even though that they're stored on cloud. So at this point, you know, we've reached our 50 minutes. We're almost at the end of the presentation now, and I think what we can do is we can take a look at some Q&A. One of the questions is on file locking. How does a locked file present itself to a second user? So the way that to a second user, the file will be available in read-only mode, but it will not be able to be used to be saved. So if the second user opens the same file from something like Word or Cloud Explorer, they'll get a message in Microsoft Word as it's opening telling them that the file is being opened in read-only mode, and Word will operate as if it's in read-only mode. From the web view, if they go and look at that web page with that file, they'll see a lock. Question, is the suite supported in Office 2013-2016? Yes, it is. Another question, do you support syncing backup between 2 or more back-end storage services, such as Google and Amazon or OpenStack? We do. In fact, on my own personal account, I have all of my files on the primary stored on Amazon, and I use our own backup facility to store the backup on Google Nearline because it's pretty cheap. Can open and lock be set as default on good double click? Probably need more breadth on the question, but double click would mean that you open a document in Word or LibreOffice or something of that nature, and as it opens, it already locks. You saw that during the demo. So it does work on double click because the action of double click is to actually open the document. In the web view, if you're doing that, double click can have different options. It can either download the file or it can open the document. And that can be set in options. If you double click and you've got it set to open, it will actually open by default in something we call Cloud Edit, which we didn't show, which again will lock the file. We had a question around Office app interaction and opening a docx file, but I already did that. We've had a question about the drives, but the person said that they're meeting one of our sales representatives already next week, so they'll pick it up with her. And we had a question around whether we support Azure AD for authentication. Depends is the answer. That's more of a conversation rather than answer on the phone, because there are different ways you can integrate with Azure AD. So we'd need to have a conversation about that, depending on how you had it set up inside of Azure. But we already have a customer on Azure using AD for authentication, but it's not using ADFS. Oh, I have another question that's just come in. Are there any latency option considerations for backup? The backup is handled by the server side. So the server side will schedule those tasks to be done. So as soon as you create a new document, it will go away and it will create a backup. Or at least it will schedule a task to create a backup. So latency doesn't really come into it because it's not a synchronous process, it's asynchronous. It happens in the background. Another question, is there a maximum file size for upload? No, there is no maximum file size. There may be maximum file sizes on the back-end storage provider. If that's the case, then we support chunking or splitting, which can be configured in the options as to how you want those chunks to look. If we're working with a provider that already supports chunking or splitting, then we defer to that provider. So an example of that would be that option that you saw when I was setting up the backup provider for OpenStack, in which you can use DLO. At this point, I think I've answered all the questions. I'd like to thank you all for attending. Feel free to reach out to us directly if you have any more questions. You can do that at info@storagemadeeasy.com, or if you have sales questions, sales@storagemadeeasy.com. If you have any direct questions for Eric or I, you can reach Eric at storagemadeeasy.com, or you can reach me, Jim, at storagemadeeasy.com. Eric's asking me if you're interested in seeing how Cloud Edit works. I can jump back to him. So for those of you who may want to see that, I'll hand the control back to Eric. And if you want to hang on, Eric will show you the Cloud Edit feature.
So I saw the question popped up again about the web interface. So I'm sorry I skipped over that. Make sure you can see my screen. So I took out the lock on the file to answer that question too. You can see a little padlock show up when a file is locked by another user. Admins can overwrite the locks, users cannot. So if I am here I pick my Word document as it may be. You can get a preview of a Word document in the right side. It goes out to a service to generate that preview. But if you instead just double-click, see why I have a hourglass here. See, we open up a little pop-up. Cloud Edit opens. It opens it into a cache folder on your computer, right into Word. Once you're done, you save, you quit, and it gets uploaded back, your new version, into the cloud directly. So it's a little helper process that manages the local cache. If Word saves a new copy, it gets uploaded upon Word closure. So it's a very tight web page integration for Word documents also. I hope that answered the last question I saw come in. Is there anything else? If Anna has the last word, otherwise I think we are up.
Yeah, I think we are done. We are good for now. So thank you very much, all of you, for attending, and please contact us if you need any information. As we said, the recorded version of the webinar will be available. I think maybe tomorrow we will send an email with the link. And that's all. Thank you, Eric and Jim, and thanks all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks.